Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Becky Schilling. It's great to have you with us today for eMarketers Tech Talk, where we host amazing guests from all areas of media, ad tech, and MarTech. Today, we're discussing the positive impact of in-house ad operations on marketplace revenue, customer experience, and overall business growth. With that said, let me introduce our guest from Moloco. Nikhil Raj, Chief Business Officer of Retail Media, is joining us from Redwood City, California. Hello, Nikhil.
Hi, Becky. Thanks for having us.
And Tameem Mohsin, Head of Strategic Growth, also joining us from Redwood City. Hello, Tameem.
Hi, great to see you.
Before we get into it, to our audience, let's keep it conversational. Just use the chat window on the right to tell us where you're joining us from and to submit your questions. We'll do our best to get to as many of your live questions as we can during the Q&A, so keep them coming. We have great content planned for today. Nikhil, over to you.
Thank you, Becky. Wonderful to be here and nice to meet everybody who's joining us for this webinar. My name is Nikhil Raj. I'm leading the business team for Moloco's retail media business globally. I joined Moloco about 8-9 months ago when from Bain and Company, where I was a partner helping build the retail media practice, advising CEOs of marketplaces, retailers around the world, as the industry has taken off in the last few years. Prior to that, I spent several years at Walmart. Got there through an acquisition when my startup got acquired, and we created Walmart Labs, where I was responsible for sort of getting their ad business off the ground. We called it WMX at that time, and today it's obviously known as Walmart Connect. Much bigger, much better than I could have ever imagined, and still excited to be bringing all of that experience, all of that learnings from more than 10 years to help build the retail media business at Moloco. Thank you very much, and over to you, Tameem.
Great. Thank you so much, Nikhil. Hi, everyone. My name is Tameem Mohsin, and I'm the head of strategic growth at Moloco. Very simply, our strategic growth team helps our platform partners build a thriving and successful ads business after implementing our software. So we work with our platform partners to set their go-to-market strategy, build out their sales operations, and ultimately market their new ad solution. Prior to joining Moloco, I worked in product strategy at Meta on the family of apps, specifically focusing on shopping services. So Instagram shopping, Facebook Marketplace, and WhatsApp for business messaging. And prior to Meta, I worked at Google as a product lead for mobile app ads. In that role, I worked with retail apps and retail publishers across the globe to get their apps downloaded, used, and get lots of purchases inside of them. Thanks. Back to you, Nikhil.
Great. Well, we'll be covering a few different topics today. I'll quickly touch upon what it means to be a commerce platform that has an advertising business and how to frame that, and some key decisions that you'll have to think about as you think about the building and scaling of that advertising business. And then I'll pass it off to Tameem to actually get into the nitty-gritty of how you'd actually build the ad business and what strategies you will take in order to do that. And at the end, we'll take some questions. We should have plenty of time for that. But without any further delay, let's jump right in. So understanding commerce media. So really, a commerce platform has three different stakeholders that need to be balanced when creating an advertising business. The most important stakeholder, and the first one on the left here is the users or the shoppers. They're on the platform. They're trying to buy a ticket, or they're trying to buy a pair of shoes or a TV or something like that. They're searching and browsing. And in that experience, as we've all been exposed to on large commerce platforms, there is advertising. The most important thing from a user perspective is that advertising is relevant and reflects what the journey of the shopper at the moment. The second most important stakeholder for the ads platform or the commerce media platform are the advertisers. That's on the top right here. These are your suppliers, your sellers, and now they've turned into your advertisers. So if you want them to be successful, you want to make sure that the ads that they're buying on your platform are delivering measurable outcomes and enabling them to drive their business on your platform. That is super critical and very important stakeholder to manage, because that's where the budgets are coming from. Finally, it's your business. This is your ads business. This is your platform. You want to create a high margin revenue stream without disrupting the user experience, stakeholder one, and ensuring your suppliers, advertisers are happy, stakeholder two. Every impression on your platform has to be maximized for ad revenue while taking the needs of the other two stakeholders in mind. So this is the objective that you have. And a successful commerce media platform will be able to balance the needs of all these three stakeholders. But as you go into thinking about how to build this, you're faced with some choices on how to build an ads business. So going on to the next slide, we'll talk about how we want to think about those choices. And these are very important decisions that you'll have to make. On the y-axis, the decisions that you have to make is, do I insource my tech stack or do I outsource it? On the x-axis, it's about the business. This is your ad sales, their ad ops, a lot of the things that Tameem is going to be talking about today. Similar choice, do I insource it or do I outsource it? So when you think about these four choices that are in front of you, there are some trade-offs. There are some pros and cons to each of them. Let's start with the bottom left box, which has the number one on it, where you hire or outsource your entire retail media operation. You outsource everything. That means your control of your technology stack is given to a vendor, and the control of your business, that is the calling onto your suppliers, the calling onto your advertisers, advertising operations, all of that is also outsourced to a third party, right? This is step number one. We kind of started it at this point in Walmart many years ago. And the business, as you all know, has evolved quite a bit from there. The second one is kind of, in some ways, the worst one. It's the hybrid approach where you insource the technology. That means you're taking on all of the expense in hiring and maintaining strong engineering teams, while at the same time, you're outsourcing the key relationships that you've built over the years with your suppliers. Kind of a little bit of the worst of both worlds. Neither your engineering team is expensive, hard to maintain, while at the same time, potentially behind the ball when it comes to bleeding edge, latest and greatest technology and roadmap and features that the advertisers want. At the same time, your partnerships that you've built with your sellers, with your suppliers, advertisers over years, decades even, is now outsourced to another party. So it's kind of, in my view, sort of the worst of both worlds. Box number 3 on the top right is where you build everything. You take full control of your technology stack, so you are willing to invest in expensive engineering. You believe strongly that the engineering will move fast enough to keep up with the latest and greatest ad formats, features, budget management, machine learning, optimization, all kinds of technology imperatives that your business needs. And at the same time, you invest in your relationship building, ensure that your advertisers and your suppliers are directly talking to your ad sales, ad ops teams, right? This is the DIY solution. This is kind of how the Amazon business runs today. And for the most part, Walmart too. They do outsource a couple of tech pieces, but for the most part, it's an in-house situation over there. And the fourth one on the bottom right is kind of where we think is the right balance that you can strike between these two approaches, where you continue investing in maintaining the relationships with your advertisers and your suppliers that you've built over many years, right? You want to invest in that relationship and continue to nurture those. At the same time, you want to partner with a ad tech solution provider that allows you to stay at the bleeding edge of all the feature requests, allows you to move really quick when market needs come up, and ensure that the technology platform that you're using has the latest and greatest features, bells and whistles, what have you, that enable you to deliver the most sort of effective outcomes for your advertiser stakeholder, if you remember my previous slide. And also at the same time, make sure that it's highly relevant for the user. So this is where we think the industry should go, and we're recommending, and we're seeing many of our customers who have taken some of the other approaches in the past come to us and want to move forward with this approach. So moving right along, so what are the benefits? What if we chose the approach to partner with somebody for the technology needs while you bring the advertising sales, advertising operations in-house? The first one is, of course, you empower your advertisers and you deepen your relationships with them. You have reduced the reliance on third parties. You've strengthened the connections you have already built with your sellers, if you're a marketplace, with the brands or your suppliers, if you're a first-party retail platform. And then you provide them with the latest and greatest technology tools that you get from your technology partner. Number two in the middle is about flexibility and independence. We've got customer after customer asking us about how you want to customize the technology stack to their unique business model. An auction provider might want to incorporate elements of the auction, bids and asks, into the ad auction itself, right? A first-party retailer might want to say, look, I need to take care of the needs of large brands and their agencies and multiple brands within a brand house like Procter & Gamble, and how we might be able to serve all the brands which have different agencies and different capabilities that they need. You also want to do that really, really quickly, quick time to market. You want to do it at the lowest cost possible. In fact, it should be all part of the partnership that you have with your ad tech provider, right? That flexibility and independence is the second benefit. While at the same time, you want to make sure that you ensure a quality experience for your shoppers. It has to be relevant. The ads should not detract from the core e-commerce or any other type of experience that you're providing. And in many cases, it should enhance that, right? You want a partner that can deliver that kind of an experience where ads are at a minimum neutral to your existing GMV and your existing operation, and at best, enhance the whole thing with increasing discovery of the long tail of your catalog with advertising. So this is the benefit that you get when you choose option number 4, as you can see on the top right over there, where you bring the technology platform in through a partnership while you invest internally into your advertising sales, your advertising operations, and build a business team that builds on the long-term relationships you've developed with your sellers, with your advertisers, and your ecosystem. So with that, I'll hand it off to Tameem to talk about how you actually implement your ad business. Over to you, Tameem.
Great. Thank you so much, Nikhil. So in that quad box you showed, going around the circle there, so to say, you landed on number 4, partnering. And this is where I'm going to talk about implementing that partnership strategy. So at the very basics, at the very root of this, you have 2 things. You're putting ad slots on your mobile app or website. So as you can see here in this illustrative example of a food delivery app, you're opening up what we call ad inventory. And then at the next point, you're taking those white boxes, that ad inventory that you've opened up, and you're filling those white rectangles, that ad inventory, with great advertisements that actually inspire the shopper to actually click on them. So the very core, I call it these atomic levels. These are the 2 things that you're doing. And then the ad spend that you're generating for your platform is really driven off of these 2 things. So the ad spend you can see here on the left of that driver tree has ad supply at the top, and at the bottom, the demand that you're getting from advertisers filling those white rectangular boxes. And if we take these 2 branches one at a time, at the top branch here, so putting ad slots and adding in supply, you really want to be thoughtful about 2 things. You want to think, okay, how many ad inventory placements do I want, right? Am I going to put them on the search page, the home page, the category page, the browse page, and so on and so forth? And then where are those ad slots going to go? And as you put out this end count of ad slots on these various surfaces, these various pages, you want to think about where the traffic is happening, right? And also where's the marketing funnel taking place? Is someone here in browse and discovery mode? Does someone know, for example, that illustrative food delivery example, do they know they actually want pizza tonight? So now I should show them different types of pizzas or a complementary type of food item, such as garlic bread and so on. This is where you get into the supply side of the inventory. Now, as I shift down to the next arm of this driver tree, you want to think about the demand side. So illustratively, again, let's say you're dealing with 1,000 restaurants in this food platform. You want to think about, okay, I have some sort of tiering system, most likely, with these partners who I'm working with. Let's say these 1,000 folks, these 1,000 restaurant owners and proprietors. You probably have some platinum tier, about 50 key restaurants. You probably have a gold tier, a silver tier, and a bronze tier. And you think, okay, based on how much GMV they drive for the app or website, here's my strategy to activate them and call upon them to become not only our merchant and vendor partners, but also our advertising partners. And then double clicking one level deeper, It's not only about activating them to become advertisers on your app and website, but also getting them to invest in the budgets and showing them that return on advertising spend, that ROAS, once they commit that first dollar, then $10, then 100, or even $1,000. So recapping this slide, the ad spend on the left is driven by these two core components: the ad supply and inventory you open up, and obviously where you put that inventory, and then the demand that you generate to fill those empty ad slots with great, rich, compelling, and attractive ads. Now let's talk about who's involved in these processes. So again, supply and demand. On the supply side, there are numerous cross-functional stakeholders that you're going to partner with, but three really jump out. Number one, the product teams. I talk a lot with my colleagues, with Nikhil, obviously, like these mobile apps and websites, this is your baby, right? This is your company's face to the entire world. This app, this website has been something you've been sharpening and honing for years, if not decade or decades, right? So you want to be really thoughtful and work with your product team and also your UX and design team about where you want to put these ad slots. And you're going to bring into the equation there your data science team, because you're going to work with all of these three constituents and more to understand, okay, do we want to put this ad at the top, a mid shelf, or a bottom shelf? When we go to the search page, where do we want to put the ad? So do you have your organic result, do you have your ad, and so on and so forth? And you're going to work cross-functionally with these three groups: product, UX, data science, and even more, to decide where we're going to put these white rectangles. On the demand side, when you're filling up those white inventory rectangular spots with great advertisements and ads, you want to talk about three teams at the core, but many cross-functionally. Number one, who is the commercialization or sales team? I like to say when I walk in and work with a partner, who's calling the customer? Who's bringing in the dollars? Let's find that team and that person and bring them into the fold. Number two, you probably have some sort of partner management team. So who's working with your vendors and suppliers on a daily basis, or weekly, biweekly, or monthly? I like to ask the question, okay, there probably is some sort of phone call, email, report going on the 15th and 30th of the month, or every day, or whatever, depending on the tiering of that supplier. Who is managing that relationship? Who is saying you had this much in GMV last week and this much, 2 weeks before? We see these trends. We suggest updating the pictures on your on our app and website, or you should update your menu. Who's owning that relation? Let's bring he or she into the fold too. And then finally, your marketing team. So whenever you're launching anything for your app or your website or a new service or so on and so forth, who is broadcasting that information? These three key groups, sales, partner management, and marketing, have to be brought into the fold to activate this demand, to fill those rectangles with great ads. Our focus for this session on implementing your ad strategy and insourcing that business side will be on this bottom demand rectangle. Now let's shift over and move demand to the leftmost of this tree and double click in. I like to say that ad demand can be generated in one-to-one, phone calls and kind of, interactions, or at scale. We'll break these two pieces apart and take them one by one. So an advertiser is being activated, number one, I like to say it's a simple math equation, right? It's number pitched by close win rate. And this is where I have to think about, okay, as we look at these 1,000 restaurants, for example, in that food delivery app example, how are we going to segment these restaurants? Do we want to go by size of GMV? Do we want to go by their margin structure? Do we want to think about having a wide variety of categories? Because you don't want to have ads from 50 pizza shops and nothing else, right? Because if someone's searching for burgers, there's no ads, right? So how do you segment this, and who do you want to pitch? And then most importantly, back to the previous slide in your sales process, who's going to make that call? Is it a salesperson from a contact center internally you have? Is it the partner manager and you're layering on another goal or OKR to their job? Or is it someone else? And then how are you going to make them effective at pitching the solution? We'll get into that later. On the bottom rung of this driver tree here, we have advertisers acquired at scale. And I like to say there's nothing more beautiful than waking up to customers signing up for your service in the morning without having to do anything, right? So there's two ways to do this very broadly. It's either from external sites, things that are public facing, right? You don't have any login parameters or things of that sort. Or you have from internal sites where you actually had to pass some login parameters. So for external sites, how are you going to showcase your new ad solution? Is there a help center? Do you have a blog that you post to regularly? Do you put it on your social media, and so on and so forth? Where are you going to showcase your new ad solution, just like you would showcase anything else about your app or website for this illustrative food delivery company? On the bottom rung here, let's say your partners or your suppliers log in. They probably have some workflow. They check, log in, they pass in their parameters. They look at, okay, I had this many food orders this week or this month. This is how it compares to last month. This is the zip codes or radius it's coming from. Here's the average order size, and so on and so forth. You know what'd be great? Having a little green box right where their eyes are in their existing workflows saying, learn about our new ad solution, or get more traffic with ads, or get more sales and GMV with ads. This type of integration into your existing merchant workflows and vendor portals, we've really seen our platform partners take off with their ads business when they put a call to action and a motivation to start using ads in existing spaces that people are entering into. And this takes me to a key point as you think about, that quad box that Nikhil mentioned. You want to own this relationship. You really want to have the deepening relationship with these 1,000 illustrative restaurant owners, because already, like, you're a direct teammate of theirs. I like to say, like, the greatest sense of accomplishment and satisfaction is when you don't realize what companies you work for, because you're all marching forward to the same goal, whether you're the food delivery app or the restaurant. And at the same time, that's where companies like ourselves, Moloco, want to partner with you and say, let's find someone who will make our existing merchant portal fully integrated with ads. So it reduces that friction or eliminates altogether. So you can run these advertising campaigns and budgets from existing workflows that your vendors and merchants are familiar with already. Now, who's involved here? There's a lot of constituents, which is very important. And the one thing, if there's a few things that you should walk away with, in my humble opinion, from this webinar, one of the key takeaways is this is absolutely not an IT project. I know something Nikhil and I talk about a lot with our cross-functional teammates here at Moloco is, a lot of people say, okay, we're going to get some great tech vendor. We're going to work with them. We're going to, do some API calls, and voila, like money will start flowing out of the earth, right? That can happen, but oftentimes is not likely. This is a true new business unit that you're standing up. And as such, it's not just a tech product. You have to have the business teams, the finance teams, the executive leadership team, and so on and so forth involved. That doesn't mean you have to go hire a whole slew of FTEs and add headcount cost, but you have to have the mind share, attention, and OKR and KPI buy-in from many different teams. So I'm going from left to right here. You have governance, strategy, sales, management, tech, data, finance, and legal. You can see this here on the screen yourselves. But these projects and insourcing this technology and building, insourcing the ad operations and building this forward really needs a key executive stakeholder. There has to be someone at the senior level who's owning the project, is watching the revenue line and really making sure that it's resourced properly. On the strategy side, let's say you have those 1,000 restaurants in your platform. You have to think about, okay, how do we segment them? How do we work with them? Do we want to have some test pitches with a few friendlies who know our product really well and are familiar and are kind of early adopters of what we put out in the market? Do we have the sales skills internally to actually sell performance advertising? We see this all the time where people are experts in commerce. They know merchandising, supply chain, inventory, and so on and so forth. But a concept like CPC, cost per click, or ROAS, is something new and a little bit mysterious to them. So do you have those sales skills? Do you have to hire someone to actually sell your performance advertising, or can you train up your existing teammates? Advertiser management is something that I also feel very, very strongly about. And this goes to the whole implementing the strategy of insourcing the ad operations. Again, you feel like a partner to these restaurants, right? To your merchants and vendors. And you want to deepen that relationship, not seeing ads as a revenue driver for you, but as a way to drive revenue for yourself, but also sell more of your restaurant partner and merchant partner's product and bring awareness to their solution. It's all about making them more successful. And that partner manager who owns that relationship, who has a basket of clients that they walk through and shepherd every single day of the month through their entire life cycle with their company, having that person really bought into this experience is key. And then obviously tech and data and finance. I like to say that these conversations turn numerical very quickly. As soon as you launch these advertising campaigns, you're going to get questions and great ideas and feedback about how are my bids doing? Why did I spend this budget on this day? Hey, how many SKUs should I upload? If I'm a restaurant and I have, this type of menu items, burgers, pizza, fries, chicken tenders, and so on and so forth, what should I be showing in my campaigns? All these database questions will be coming up a lot, and you're going to have your data science and analytics and business analyst teams involved. So I mentioned some of the teams, and here are some of the metrics that we track when we work with platform partners about building this ad operations business unit inside of their own four walls. There's a lot of metrics here, a lot of things to track. So I'm obviously not going to go through all of them, but there's three things that I really hone in on and like to focus on. Number one, the ultimate North Star metric, it's a little bit of an output variable, I call it, is ad spend over GMV as a percentage. And what that very simply means is, let's say one of your restaurant partners sells, $100 of food through your mobile app a day. How much are they spending on ads? Is it $2 on ads? So 2%, $3, $4, and so on and so forth. So ad spend over GMV and making sure that they understand the investment of ads can drive their GMV and how is that ratio commensurate and changing over time. The second thing I like to think about is I call it the atomic unit of number of advertisers that you have activated. So if you have 1,000 restaurants in your platform or 1,000 merchants and supplier partners, what is the end count, that atomic unit who says, you know what, I'm going to go on this journey with you and I'm going to start advertising on your platform. So seeing that number go up every single day, whether it's through one-to-one, hand-to-hand pitching, like you saw in the previous slide, or through lead gen forms on your website externally, or through existing workflows in your partner portal, seeing that number go up every single day is a goal. I like to say internally that when I work with our platform partners, the goal is you wake up every morning, and even if that number went up by 1 digit, that's a win for the day. And then finally here, the next number I think is, the ultimate thing that we all think about is ROAS, or return on ad spend. So like Nikhil mentioned at the very beginning with this flywheel, no one can be successful. Nothing happens unless we're delivering value, number one, to the end advertiser, but also to the merchant and vendor who's investing in your new ad solution. So making sure that they hit their ROAS goals and targets based on their margin structure, the average sale price, and so on and so forth of the business that they're featuring on your platform. So as we close together on this part of the presentation before we hit the Q&A, there are 3 things I want to close in on as steps as you plan forward and your key steps and action items. Number 1, plan and establish your cross-functional team. A call back to just a few minutes ago. Again, this is not an IT project. This is something that's going to involve sales, partner managers, data analytics, and finance, and several others. You need to set up this core working group. It can come from existing teammates from another division, and so on and so forth, by making sure that everyone rallies around this new business unit and that you have an executive sponsor and owner who's taking single-threaded accountability for this. Second, you want to build that advertiser base. You want to say, okay, I have these 1,000 restaurants or vendors or partners I'm working with. If I want to work backwards from my revenue goal for an ARR, an annual run rate, what does that mean in terms of number of businesses and partners I need to activate as advertisers? And what budgets do they need to nominate into my new ad solution? So building that advertiser base, segmenting your group, figuring out their margin structures, asking them their inclination to use ads, seeing how much budget they would invest, and so on. And then finally, once you get that, that escape velocity and you start working through getting your merchant partners to advertise, how do you grow and scale the business? How do you build case studies from your existing partners and use that as marketing material? How do you start scaling through new, training materials or your own webinars, right, to educate your merchant and advertiser base on how to do more with ads? Or if they're still on the fence, showing them examples of, others in their industry who have adopted your ads solution and saying they should jump aboard too. And you're always prospecting for people who are on the fence or who want to become an advertising partner and are seeing success as a merchant in your platform to bring them into the fold. I like to say that, it's like, penguins jumping off into the water, right? All it takes is a couple, and then they all start coming in. And a key thing that we've been observing with our partners as they've been building these ad operations in-house is that the data starts to unlock activation. Once one person who sells hamburgers goes in and has good ROAS and gets more impression and more GMV, then the next hamburger shop comes in. And then the pizza place says, wait a second, I want people to eat pizza for lunch, not just hamburgers, and they jump aboard too. So as you see scale and you get that data, you can use that for activation purposes. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Becky.
Great. Thank you for sharing that great information about capitalizing on both demand and supply to build out your commerce ads business, and for sparking a little bit of hunger in all of us. Speaking of hunger, our audience has lots of questions for you, so let's get into it. First question, Tameem, this is for you. What metrics should I track?
Yeah, great question. Thank you to have resurfaced that. I mentioned a few of the metrics 3 slides ago, and one that I really like is advertiser activation. I always say, Nikhil, no, that's my atomic unit. I want to see that number go up every day, even if it's by 1. So again, if you have 1,000 vendors you work with, How many are we getting onto your ads platform? Whether, it's going to start at one, hopefully it gets to, double digits, then triple digits soon, but how many are we activating? So that's that, but I'm not going to finish there. It doesn't matter only if you get a vendor on, but it has to be one of your most influential or highest GMV delivering vendors. So I call that percent GMV activated. Let me repeat that, percent GMV activated. So if you have 1,000 vendors, let's say each does $1 a day, just illustratively, you have $1,000. It's probably not proportionate, right? You're going to have some very lumpy big whales in there. So it's about getting those big whales. So you don't just get 1% activation, you get 3% activation just from activating one of your merchant partners. So to answer the question, it's obviously the end count of merchants activated and advertisers, but also percent GMV activated from your platform.
Great. You mentioned this is not an IT operation, but how should you set up your ad operations team, and who are your first two hires?
Great question. I'll start this, Nikhil. I'm going to throw it to you right after this too, because I want to hear your thoughts. So my first two hires, and a lot of times this can be from internal teammates. It's going to be someone on your partner manager team. So someone who's interacting with that pizza shop or taco shop or hamburger shop, who you've seen shown an inclination to selling as well. So not only are they managing the relationship, but anytime you have a new service, like let's do a push on menu updates this week, or let's get pictures of the menus, or let's get something to showcase, a big push for Thanksgiving ordering. If there's someone in your partner management fleet and team who is not only great at working with partners, but has just a knack for getting them to adopt your next solution or next value-added service, that's number one, someone I'd like to get involved. And then number two is someone from a data analytics or a business analyst background, someone who has the data on your entire portfolio of merchants, understands the margin structure, their profile, how much GMV they're pushing through, their rhythms when they turn it on and off services in your platform, to say, hey, team, we have 1,000 partners. I think these 25 are must go get. So let's do practice pitches on 5, 26 through 30. Of that 25, let's talk to the first 8 friendlies because they can iterate with us. And then let's talk to 9 through 25. But we got to go get these 25. And that data person, whether it's an analyst or data scientist, is going to be a key constituent. Nikhil, I'd love to hear from you.
No, this is exactly what I would look for as well. I might add a nuance in terms of the types of customers or the types of commerce platforms out there. We're obviously talking about marketplaces where there is a relationship between the platform and the restaurant, the platform and the seller. In the case of 1P commerce platforms, where you've already bought the inventory, you've got it in your warehouse, it's a large brand. In these large brands are advertising on multiple platforms. They're very, very sophisticated. They buy ads on Google, on Facebook. They're also trying to buy ads on your platform. So someone who's more familiar with the advertising industry, with the terminology, with how budgets work, how to provide reporting, measurement, performance, all of these different capabilities are required from within your organization now, which you probably didn't have before. So when you think about this person who understands ads, who's able to sell, you also want somebody who's got the experience working with large brands and agencies with their budgets. And in the case of 1P retailers, we've seen the largest retail media platforms tap into the talent pools coming out of Facebook and Google, Amazon ads, and these types of companies as they bring that hire on board. So I might just add that nuance to the question here. Depending on who you are as a platform, you might want to think about what type of person you want to bring in first into the business.
I'm going to ask you guys a
Back to you, Becky.
A two-part question about ads and placement. So the first part is going to be, how do I decide where to put my ads? And then how do I not oversaturate with ads on my website or my app?
Mm-hmm. Great question. Nikhil, want to take that one?
No, yeah, sure. I can take the first crack at it. Look, you want to balance out where the consumers are on your platform and and how the conversions are happening. In a typical e-commerce experience, you might find people coming into your homepage or into your search pages, and from there branch off into a product page, do a search, do a browse, and end up buying something. Now, as you think about intent, the search and click down from search has very high intent. And so you're going to get a lot of conversion from ads over there. But you're going to have limited volume of impressions to influence people to do that activity, to search and click on your ad. You might also want to place some ads further up in the funnel that bring people the awareness to your product, maybe on the homepage, maybe at the top of the category page, before they start searching and start exploring the product or the thing that they're looking to do, right? I mean, anything you would add to that? I'm sure you have a few things.
No, that's perfect. And I want to talk a little bit about the back part of the question, the saturation. We want, a mantra that, is all around ad tech is you want ads to be delightful and assistive. And I think that's where saturation isn't even a point because you've broken through that. Some of the best partners that we've seen are people implementing, retail media overall, is where the ads are so native to what they're organically looking at, it doesn't even feel like an ad. So I don't want to say that there's like a number like 20% ads versus 80% organic or so on and so forth. It's all about making it super native to exactly what they're seeing and experiencing nonetheless, and ensuring that whether it's let's say sneakers or apparel or whatnot, that you can't even tell or you don't even care whether it's an ad or not because it's all relevant to what you're browsing or actively searching.
Yeah, that's a key part. Let me reemphasize native experience and relevance. You want the ad to be highly, highly relevant to the consumer. Otherwise, you've just wasted an impression. They didn't click on it. Because they didn't click on it, the return for our advertisers went down. And frankly, you didn't make any money. You just burnt an impression on showing someone an ad that they didn't care for. So it's really, really important, this concept of what we call ad load in the industry. And the ad load, to Tameem's point, if ads are indistinguishable from organic content, everything could be an ad in theory at the limit. But you got to be really, really careful as you think about inserting ads into your experience. It's a great question.
Here's a question from our audience about non-endemic advertisers. And this person would like to know, how do you decide what non-endemic advertisers to go after to increase demand?
I mean, if you want to take that, or should I take the first crack?
Yeah, why don't you take the first crack?
Yeah, great. So on non-endemics, it's a really interesting question. There is some reason a non-endemic is approached you, or you have some hypothesis that, I'm selling these high-end things on my website, luxury goods, and therefore I might want to show ads from a very high-end car manufacturer on my website, right? You might have a hypothesis that suggests something like that. So the best way to think about it is with non-endemics is what is the relevance of my user base, of my community, to a non-endemic advertiser on my platform. That's one angle you might want to explore. The other angle is pure scale. And we are starting to see retail media networks get into this situation where they're so big and they have so much reach that they are basically indistinguishable from other media companies. So I just want to deliver reach and frequency to my users, typical objectives that you have when you're a brand advertiser. So if I'm a commerce platform that has huge scale, and I'll pick on Amazon because they're the largest one in the US, a Verizon Wireless, which does not sell on Amazon, or a State Farm or a Geico, might want to reach Amazon shoppers simply because they can reach everybody in the United States, right? Those types of, there are two different, obviously, angles here. If you're a smaller platform that has a niche audience that is interesting to a non-endemic advertiser, you might want to explore those hypotheses, do a test and learn, and think about who you want to bring on. If you're a large platform that has plenty of traffic and there's interest from the non-endemic community to reach your audience, I think you should definitely think about opening it up that way as well. Tameem?
Nothing to add. That was great.
Yeah. Back to you, Becky.
Great. So what is the opening 60 seconds of a pitch to a potential advertiser? Tameem, you want to start?
Opening 60 seconds. Anyone who knows me loves to know that I lead with data. So, normally these aren't cold pitches. It's someone who you've been working with through partner management, for the last X quarters, years, or so on and so forth. I say, dear, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, let's go over, in our weekly review, monthly review, or whatnot. I've seen that you've been selling $100 worth of hamburgers per day. As you can tell, I'm hungry. It's before lunch here in Redwood City. So we've been $100 worth of hamburgers a day. This has been great. We see a dip on Fridays at this time and so on and so forth. On Saturdays, we have low traffic here. Also, we've noticed that in your cohort, in restaurants that we see in your zip code radius, we see these trends happening. We believe that with our new ad solution, that we can get increased impressions and awareness, and most of all, sales and GMV throughput of your restaurant based on this advertising. And here are some data points and proof points that we've seen in our own tests and also from peers in your peer set and also industry comparables. That's how I like to go forward with it. You don't want to be jargony and have zeros and ones talking, but I think showing them the data, because this is normally what's happening anyways in these reviews, whether it's weekly, monthly, or quarterly, and showing them, here are the dips, here's what we see, here are the trends, and here's where ads can augment to offset some of these trends. Also, here's what your competitors are doing, anonymized, of course, or just, generally in the industry. Here's what different categories are doing. And also here are some example points of value that we've seen already. That's how I approach these conversations personally. Nikhil, anything to add?
No, that's great.
All right, we have time for one last question. So we've built out our ad solution. How do you create awareness for this ad solution that you've built out?
Great question. Thank you. I'll take the first stab and Nikhil, I'll throw it to you. So I'm going to assume something. You built this ad solution, the software is implanted, and so on and so forth. And again, going back to the driver tree, it's like one-to-one conversations or scaled activation. And I love this question, so thank you whoever asked it, because so many times it's, again, it's seen as the IT project. Now it's like waiting for the money to come in. So awareness, I see two things: finding exactly who the partner managers are, finding the ones who are inclined to selling, and working with them to do some base activations. That's going to be great, hopefully, but that's not going to get you to 10,000 activations unless you have a business organization sized army. I firmly believe that creating awareness through existing FAQ sites, help centers, anywhere where you're debuting new services for your core app or your core website, featuring ads there and having a lead gen form. And then even beyond that, in that green box that I showed earlier, wherever their existing workflows internally are taking them after they log in, showcasing apps there or advertising there is key. I think these are the three things. Number one, working with great partner managers to do your first seed sales. Number two, you have to create awareness on your blogs, FAQ sites, help centers, and so on to create lead gen. So anywhere that, that burger restaurant is checking to see like what's going on with your company there. And number three, whatever people are logging into to see their sales stats, trends, and so on, putting ads there with some data points saying, we've noticed blank happening with your restaurant or this area over the last 30, 60, 90 days. Learn more about ads in order to augment your sales and transactions.
I might just add a 1P context from my background and experience. You have great merchant partners, you have buyers already in the organization interfacing with your suppliers. They're probably coming in for a quarterly or a monthly JBP or an annual JBP, joint business plan, where together you're planning out what you're going to do with them for your category, for your business, right? So when you have a situation like that where you're already interfacing, you want to bring up the conversation and talk about your new program. Maybe in the year beginning kickoff of your business, you invite them and you present the new ad business on stage. You have your pilot partners with you. You talk about the performance that they're getting, and you're kind of intertwining the conversation that you're already having with your suppliers on building the business together. You bring the advertising conversation into the same discussion as well. So this is how maybe a little bit of a perspective from retailer side of things.
Great. Nikhil, Tameem, thank you again for this great content and answering all of our questions today from our audience. We really appreciate it. Before we wrap up, let me take a moment to tell you about eMarketer's media channels. You can register for live analyst and Tech Talk webinars on our events page at emarketer.com/events. On the audio side of the house, don't forget to tune in to Behind the Numbers, eMarketer's daily podcast. And finally, please check out our newsletters. Thank you all for your time, and thanks again to Nikhil, Tameem, and the team at Moloco and our eMarketer studio team behind the scenes for making this webinar possible. We'll see you all on the next Tech Talk.